Today is Monday, July 22nd, and we are talking about President Biden's historic exit from the presidential race and Vice President Harris's entrance into it. But Harris is still not guaranteed to be the nominee. What comes next, with just more than 100 days before the general election? Plus, the ongoing fallout from the largest IT outage in history, a new warning about deli meats, and details of a government-wide plan to crack down on plastics. Those stories and even more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. We start today with a major turning point in American politics. President Biden has become the first presidential nominee in modern history to bow out of the race this close to a general election. Biden announced he is ending his re-election bid. He put out a statement yesterday that said, quote, "I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down." To be clear, he's not resigning from the presidency and has promised to keep leading the nation until the next president takes over in 6 months. Still, this is a big turnaround for Biden, who has been insisting he would keep running despite pressure from top Democrats and donors. As for exactly why he changed his mind, Biden says he's going to address the country with more details on his decision later this week. In response to the news, the Republican presidential nominee, former President Trump, wrote on Truth Social, quote, "Crooked Biden was not fit to run for president and is certainly not fit to serve and never was." Other Republicans, like Speaker Mike Johnson, called on Biden to resign the presidency immediately. But there are still lawmakers on both sides of the aisle who have instead decided to thank Biden for his more than half a century in public office. And many world leaders have said they look forward to working with the president until the end of his term. President Biden's decision kicks off an intense scramble for Democrats to unite behind a new presidential candidate. Right away, Biden endorsed his vice president, Kamala Harris. And soon after, she officially announced her campaign, saying, quote, "My intention is to earn and win this nomination." Since then, many top Democrats have started to rally behind her, including former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, and more. Though so far, a few notable figures, including former President Barack Obama, praised Biden and his withdrawal without saying anything yet about who should step in. While some were wondering if this was a snub, other reports cite those close to him who say Obama wants to position himself as impartial until later, just like he did in the 2020 primaries, and he wanted Sunday to be about celebrating Biden. Either way, this is not a done deal. Biden has released the more than 4,000 delegates he won during the primary, but he cannot actually control where they go. Those delegates are now free to select any new candidate. In other words, for the first time in generations, this could be the first time a nominee is chosen at the convention rather than through primaries. So Harris has already begun calling Democratic leaders and election officials to try to build support. Granted, as of this morning, no other candidate has said they plan to run. And if it is Harris, it would be a smoother transition since she could take over the Biden-Harris campaign's $96 million bank account. All of the donations that have been given to Biden could be hers since her name is already on the Federal Election Commission filings. Otherwise, the campaign may have to issue refunds to donors who could then reallocate their gifts if they wanted to. Though already donors have contributed tens of millions of dollars to the vice president's new campaign just since yesterday. If Harris is to secure the nomination, she'll be the first woman of color to become a major party's presidential nominee. The U.S. Secret Service is facing even more intense scrutiny in the wake of the attempted assassination of former President Trump. Trump's security detail has complained they haven't been getting enough resources and personnel for years now, though the Secret Service says it's only because the entire agency is stretched thin. And over the weekend, it confirmed that it's been denying some requests, but said it's instead gone with other security measures and relied more on local partners. To be clear, the requests for extra resources that got denied were not specifically for the rally where Trump got shot. But already there have been questions about how the rally shooter was able to take a position on the roof with a clear shot at former President Trump, even after local officers noticed him acting suspiciously. So this latest information is likely to fuel intense criticism that Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle has already been facing. Lawmakers are expected to grill her more today and call on her to step down when she testifies in Congress. The western U.S. is dealing with yet another round of record-breaking heat. And for at least a few more days, triple-digit temperatures are expected to stick around from Southern California to northern Idaho. In Washington state, temperatures are 20 degrees higher than usual for this time of year. Elsewhere around the West Coast, they're about 10 degrees warmer than normal. Parts of Oregon and Washington are also under wildfire threats because of hot and dry weather. And some people have already had to evacuate as wildfires grow. Many areas could start to see some relief, though, by the middle of this week. For others, it could be Friday before things finally start to get back to normal. All right, we have much more news for you still coming up, but first, I'm excited to tell you about our sponsor, Shopify. I launched this podcast and the business behind it nearly 7 years ago at this point, and I've learned that running a growing business means getting the insights you need where you are. So if you want to start a business or you're already years in like me, Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Seriously, you can launch with it, and then no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take that business to the next level. No wonder Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify's the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. In fact, even as a customer, I often notice my favorite brands and companies using Shopify at checkout. And I so appreciate how easy the process is from that side as well. So it just continues to build trust with customers. And there's nothing that means more to me and this business than gaining and keeping listener and customer trust. So sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/newsworthy, all lowercase. So go to shopify.com/newsworthy right now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/newsworthy. Now back to the news. Much of the world is still recovering from what ended up being the largest IT outage in history. It disrupted everything from 911 services and hospitals to airlines and banks to freight deliveries and many other businesses all around the world. The outage was triggered by a single faulty software update from the cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike that was applied to Microsoft Windows operating systems. The issue has reportedly been fixed, but the recovery process is slow. Thousands of flights have been either delayed or canceled on each of the last 3 days. And more are expected today, likely because of flight schedules being disrupted and airline crews and equipment being out of place. For the rest of us, experts say if in the last few days you paid a bill online, booked a reservation, or were waiting for a direct deposit, you might want to double check to make sure what you expected to happen actually happened. And be wary of people reaching out claiming they can help, since scammers are apparently trying to take advantage. And even though this incident was not a hack or any sort of security issue, a lot of companies are still expected to beef up their cyber defenses. And it's expected to add a new layer of urgency to cybersecurity collaborations around the world, possibly even leading to new policies. Well, the U.S. is saying goodbye to a prominent American congresswoman who fought for civil and women's rights. Democrat Sheila Jackson Lee died at 74 years old after battling pancreatic cancer. She represented parts of Texas in Congress for the past 30 years. In recent years, Jackson Lee has been known for introducing legislation that ended up making Juneteenth a federal holiday. She also led legislation that reauthorized the Violence Against Women Act and more. Plus, she was on the critical U.S. House Judiciary and Homeland Security committees. Tributes have been coming in all weekend from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. It's a big step for tackling plastic pollution. The White House announced a new goal of phasing out single-use plastics across the entire federal government by 2035. And that's significant since the government is the biggest buyer of consumer goods in the world. The shift will include some simple steps like switching to refillable printer cartridges and cleaning supplies, and some tougher ones like finding substitutes for plastics used in combat settings or emergency medical use. The Biden administration says it's also planning tougher regulations on plastic manufacturing, which releases greenhouse gases and other pollutants. In response to the White House's announcement, the president of America's plastic makers said the industry is on board and also wanting plastics to be reusable or more easily recyclable. The CDC has a new warning about a listeria outbreak linked to deli meat. Dozens of people have had to be hospitalized across many states, and 2 of them have died. All of them reported eating meats sliced at the deli in the month before they got sick. No one has reported getting sick after eating packaged deli meats. Still, it's not clear exactly what kind of meat is to blame, so for now, no recalls have been issued. In the meantime, the CDC is recommending anyone who is 65 or older, pregnant, or has a weakened immune system to avoid eating deli meat unless it's been heated until it steams. 4 baseball legends are now Hall of Famers. The Baseball Hall of Fame's 2024 class was inducted over the weekend, including players like Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, and Todd Helton, plus longtime manager Jim Leyland. All 4 gave emotional speeches as they were enshrined into baseball history in front of tens of thousands of fans. Beltre played with the Dodgers, Mariners, Red Sox, and Rangers. He's one of only 2 players to have more than 3,000 hits, 400 homers, and at least 5 Gold Gloves. Then there's Mauer, who spent his entire career with the Minnesota Twins. In his time there, he won 3 batting titles, more than any other catcher in history. Helton also spent his entire career with the same team that drafted him, the Colorado Rockies. He won 3 Gold Glove awards, made 5 All-Star Game appearances in a row, and won a batting title. And finally, Jim Leyland. He spent 22 seasons managing the Pirates, Marlins, Rockies, and Tigers, and with the 1997 Marlins, he won a World Series. During his speech, Leyland said, quote, "My contributions to our beautiful pastime pale in comparison to the joy it has brought to my life." That's it for the main news, so now it's time for Money Monday, when we talk about one interesting money-related news story. But first, this episode is brought to you by SKIMS. After a hectic or long day, I want to put on loungewear that makes me feel great. And honestly, the same old t-shirt and sweatpants or shorts just have not been cutting it anymore. Enter my SKIMS Soft Lounge Sleep Set. If you haven't gotten on the matching pajama set train yet, this is your sign, because it makes you feel like $1,000,000, even when you're around the house. And just like everything else I've tried from SKIMS, the fabric is incredible. So soft, so comfortable, and super high quality. I also got the Soft Lounge long slip dress, and it is truly the simplest way to feel put together and confident. I just throw it on and go, and yet I feel like I've spent all day getting ready. And of course, once again, the fabric is soft and comfortable. I'm always impressed with the feel and fit of everything I've gotten from SKIMS, and that is so true of the Soft Lounge collection as well. So you've got to shop the SKIMS Soft Lounge collection at skims.com. Now available in sizes extra, extra small to 4X. If you haven't yet, be sure to let them know I sent you. After you place your order, select The Newsworthy in the survey and select my show in the drop-down menu that follows. Okay, now back to Money Monday. A new survey from Gallup and the nonprofit group West Health found Americans spend more on healthcare than any other developed country, but almost half of Americans still cannot afford it. The survey looked at more than 5,000 adults around the U.S. 45% of them said they'd recently had to skip treatment or medicine, either because of cost or lack of easy access. That does mean 55% can afford care and medicine, but that's down from 61% just a couple of years ago. The people behind the survey say Americans are struggling in part due to higher inflation, but also a long-term trend toward insurance plans with higher deductibles and less comprehensive coverage. Separately, the Peterson KFF healthcare tracker shows Americans spend an average of nearly $13,000 per person on healthcare each year. And that's nearly twice as much as what typical healthcare spending costs across other developed nations. So West Health is now calling for meaningful reform to rein in prices. But of course, not everyone agrees with what kind of reform will really help most. All right, thank you so much for joining us today. Of course, we'll be back with even more news to know tomorrow. For now, have a great day.